going to talk about the basic comparison between the Fargate and the EC2 cluster. When we want to develop an application or and then we want to architect the solution as what service we will use in AWS, we can easily get confused between ECS Fargate or between the EC2. So let's start a basic comparison that will help you decide as which service is best for you. So first I will talk about the Fargate cluster. Just consider this simply that for the majority of your use cases, majority Fargate cluster would be a very appropriate choice because it has no maintenance and you don't need to do any patching of the EC2 machines, because although this Fargate cluster, the Fargate nodes actually run on the EC2 machines only, but these EC2 machines are maintained by the AWS itself, and you don't need to do any kind of maintenance on your behalf for these EC2 machines, especially like security patching. Another is that it's very easy to configure without the EC2 nodes to choose from, or like just a simple Fargate configuration or creating a simple Fargate cluster is very easy. Let's talk about the EC2 cluster. So this is mostly used where choice of EC2 instance type matters. So actually EC2 service provides a lots of option on the type of EC2 instance you want to choose. It has a vast family of instances that you can choose based upon your needs. I will talk more about this later. EC2 instance gives you more control over machine because you actually have a server at or a hardware accessed at your hand, and you can just easily SSH into these machines if there is any issue. And another requirement is if you have strict compliance requirements. Sometimes the organization wants you uh, to just install some software applications that are required for the compliance, and then in that case you have no other option but to choose the EC2 cluster only. Another is troubleshooting is easy. As I said, these are the machines that you can SSH into and just have more control and see what is going on the machine in case something goes wrong with your application. But from the personal usage, actually I have been using these both of these clusters for many like years, and I feel myself that the EC2 cluster is a bit more stable in comparison to Fargate. Some of the common features that I would like to talk about are both Fargate and EC2 supports auto scaling. They support horizontal scalability based on the CPU and memory consumption. For example, if the CPU average CPU utilization of your application is increasing above a threshold, then both of these clusters have capability to scale up and add more capacity. Another is in terms of configuration. Suppose you start with the Fargate and then in future you have some compliance requirements and you want to use some dedicated EC2 instance type and you want to switch, then switching is also very easy because both of these clusters are very similar in the configuration. Both of these clusters allows you to choose VPC, subnet, security groups, IAM roles for the EC2 cluster and instance role for the Fargate clusters and the container ports, etc. Let's talk about some of the very common use cases for Fargate. So for example, if you have one instance of your application and you need less than 120 gigs of memory and 16 core of virtual CPU and a very similar requirement on hard disk like less than 200 gigs and also optimal network usage, then Fargate is best suitable for you. These 120 and 16 core virtual CPU limits are basically the limits that are present or the hardware limits on the Fargate, at the time of recording these videos, and I have been seeing that AWS keeps on increasing these limits, because I remember 4 years back it started with just 20 gigs of memory and two virtual cores, or maybe three virtual cores. But now in 2020-23 it's 120 gigs of memory and 16 core. That is very powerful, and it can be very suitable for a majority of applications. Another is, if you don't want to maintain EC2 machines, like applying security patches, because this actually on an organization level it's not an easy task to maintain EC2 instances, and because you need to make sure that you patch up these EC2 instances whenever there is a security update comes up, or just you have to apply the operations, you have to manage the operations for these EC2 instances also. So if you don't want to do that, then Fargate is very well suited for you. If your application can sustain a loss of Fargate node, so understand that these Fargates are basically the nodes only, or the ECS containers that are running on the EC2 machines only. But these EC2 machines are not managed by you, they are managed by AWS itself. So sometimes actually the patching up happens, AWS does this patching, and in the background a node may gets restarted, or maybe a node becomes unstable, and then actually your application may get lost for maybe a minute, maybe for few seconds, or maybe 2 minutes. So make sure that your application is able to sustain these losses. If you are running multiple instances of your application under the load balancer, then it should not be a problem. EC2 cluster use cases. So for example, if your organization has very strict compliance rules, for example, your organization wants you to take control of the EC2 box on which your application is running, and they want you to run some security patches that are due to their compliance, then definitely you need to go for EC2 boxes. If your application single instance of your application requires more than 120 gigs of memory and 16 core virtual CPU, or maybe if your hard disk requirement is also very high, then you should consider using EC2 boxes. If your application needs huge compute power, for example, you are doing some machine learning, or maybe you are doing some real-time image processing, video processing, etc., then actually the specific or choosing a dedicated EC2 family would be more appropriate for your application. Another reason could be like if your stability is a very big concern. Sometimes actually you want to run a standalone applications and they are not scalable, then even the one instance, single instance of that application is also very important. And if you have an EC2 machine, then I have seen with my personal experience that EC2 machines are a bit more stable, because you may maintain these machines, the patching is in your control, so these machines are more stable than the Fargate nodes. And also the troubleshooting is also easy, because you can easily SSH into it. It's not that you cannot SSH into Fargate. Now there is a new service that is available that helps you SSH the Fargate nodes also. But still, in terms of troubleshooting, EC2 is more smooth. So let me just quickly go to the EC2 instance types. Just want to show you like what all EC2 instance types are available. So these are the general purpose compute optimized, different families are available. So if your use cases are like that, you want to use some specific family because of your application use cases, then also you should consider using EC2. But as I said, for the majority of use cases, Fargate would be very suitable. So that's all about this. Thank you.